Arcane Season 2 expanded the show's horizons by introducing a larger world beyond Piltover and Zaun, with characters like Ambessa bringing powerful nations like Noxian into the mix. But that's not all. There are other intriguing threads woven into the story, which include Singed's batshit crazy experiments, which led to the creation of a deadly new monster that turned the entire plot of the show on its head. Throughout the first act of the season, Arcane had been building suspense around a mysterious werewolf-like creature throughout Act 1 of Season 2. While the League of Legends enthusiasts were quick to notice the familiar, ferocious, bloodthirsty character from the game, the casual viewers are still confused about many aspects of Warwick. Season 2 of Arcane has been one of 2024's most anticipated projects, and it's easy to see why. Plus, Riot Games set the stage brilliantly for a jaw-dropping finale to the series, leaving us eager to see how the story would unfold, especially for Warwick. As you know, Act 2 ended with a nail-biting cliffhanger as Isha fired Jinx's upgraded Hextech-powered gun at Warwick, causing a massive explosion. So does this mean Vander, who was now transformed into Warwick, is gone for good? Without wasting another moment, let's get right to it. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The man beneath the beast. Who really is Warwick? So, throughout the first act of Season 2, Singed was repeatedly teased to be working on a wolf-like creature, seemingly setting up the show to introduce Warwick, who we finally get to see in his full glory during the second act of the season. For those who are not up to date with Arcane, Singed was first introduced in Season 1 as the scientist who created Shimmer for Silco, but ever since Vander's death and Silco taking over Zaun, he's gone rogue to pursue his own experiments. His work is teased in post-episode scenes throughout the first 3 episodes of Act 1, and each glimpse builds on the anticipation to showcase Singed's unsettling experiments on wolves and other creatures. But the intensity of these scenes reached its peak in the final episode of Act 1, where we got the clearest look at the scientist's creation of a massive werewolf-like creature, ominously suspended by chains. Even though we didn't get much, and Singed's ultimate motives remained murky, the creature's sheer size and design strongly suggested that it was Arcane's take on Warwick. Now we finally meet Warwick in the second act, when Rictus marches the Noxian army into Zaun to arrest all the rebels who had gathered around Vander's statue, in the hopes of meeting Jinx, who had risen as a people's hero figure or their savior from the constant threat posed by Piltover. Now, Jinx is reluctant to lean into it, as she does not see herself as a people's hero, and has no desire to play that role. Savika, however, urges her to reconsider, and tells Jinx that the Zaunites were determined to end the Topsiders' tyranny, and planned to gather near Vander's statue. So if Jinx truly wanted to keep the fight alive, she should show up. Unfortunately, none of them were aware that Rictus had already extracted the meeting's location, allowing the Noxians to have the opportunity to ambush the peaceful protest. Sadly, what followed was a brutal and a one-sided crackdown, with most of the Zaunites, including little Isha, getting arrested. Now, as chaos erupted, Singed quietly appeared near Vander's statue, but his purpose is entirely different, as he was there to spill his own blood and awaken the monstrous creation from his lab. Anyway, it was only Savika who managed to get away from all this chaos within an inch of her life, and rushed to fill Jinx in on the situation. Let's just say that after hearing about Isha's arrest, it was more than enough to finally push her into action. Amped up with her Hex Gem boosted gun, she and Savika infiltrated the Piltover prison dressed as an enforcer, in order to free all the Zaunites. But soon she's left shocked during the climax of Arcane Season 2, as Episode 4 unleashes a werewolf beast in a stunning red palette, used to showcase his bloodthirstiness. You see, the blood dripping from Singed's palm has been serving as breadcrumbs, thereby leading the messed up werewolf to Piltover's Stillwater prison. With ruthless force, Warwick literally tore through anything that stood in his way, unleashing all forms of chaos as he hacked down everything in sight. Ambessa, who just happened to be at the prison for an inspection, narrowly escaped being torn apart by Warwick. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for the prison guards, who were shredded in an instant. As chaos erupted in the prison, Jinx ordered Savika to grab Isha and get out while she tried to slow Warwick down with her hex-powered gun. But something surprising happened at the end of Episode 4, because after an intense fight, just when Warwick was about to finish her off, he unexpectedly stopped in his tracks to look at her and called her Powder. We see his pupils dilate in a glowing blue and yellow as he visualizes the face of little Powder flash before him. Now, this was enough of a hint for anyone to figure out that is Vander. Yes, the same Vander who was a father figure to Vi and Jinx, and their whole crew, and was apparently killed during a battle with Silco's men, after injecting Shimmer into his system. But now he's somehow transformed into Warwick because of Singed's mindlessly evil experiments. This confirmation is further reinforced in Episode 3, when Jinx showed up at Vi's not-so-humble abode with shocking news of Vander still being alive. We then jump to Jinx, Isha, and Vi heading into a tunnel filled with sound-activated bioluminescent plants, which is apparently the place where Jinx lost track of Vander. As expected, Jinx and Vi quickly get into a heated argument, which eventually escalates into a physical confrontation. Now, during the scuffle, Isha tried to help Jinx beat up Vi and got hurt in the process, leaving bloodstains on the floor. Even Jinx wasn't ready to give up. She reminded Vi that the last time they tried to rescue Vander from Silco alone, things went horribly wrong. So this time, Jinx was determined to do it right, and insisted that both of Vander's daughters need to be there for him. Eventually, Vi and Jinx's search for Vander led them to a chamber filled with his belongings. While there, Vi finds a letter Vander wrote to Silco, in which he expressed his desire to reconcile with his brother. Reading this, Jinx reflected on how different things might have been if Silco had ever read that letter. Perhaps he would not have turned into the villain he became at the end. But as they dug deeper, the monstrous version of Vander caught up to Jinx, Vi, and Isha, tracking them through Isha's bleeding nose, and forcing them to confront a grim reality, because they now had to figure out how to deal with the beast standing before them. After a visually stunning and intense fight, Jinx convinces Vi to stand back and call out Vander's name, which momentarily halts his bloodlust. Now that the beast was calm, in a rare moment of tenderness, Vander brings Vi, Jinx, and Isha into a shared group hug, even though none of them really know how long this bittersweet reunion would last. How and why did Singe transform Vander into Warwick? We already know that before his tragic transformation into the Wolfman Warwick, Vander was a beloved pillar of the Zaun's underground community in Arcane Season 1. Though he carried the weight of a darker past, and his harsher edges may still be under the surface, he quickly proves to be a dependable and resourceful adopted father to Vi and Powder. It is this humanity which makes his return as Warwick in Season 2 all the more heartbreaking, because the kind and protective man he once was has now been stripped away, leaving only a brutal, animalistic creature with limited vocabulary. In League of Legends, Warwick was introduced as a relentless killer, with his vocabulary reduced to growls and brief primal phrases. But in Arcane, Warwick is first seen as a giant werewolf-like beast with metallic claws, tubes, and pumps running around his body. So if Vander's story is edging toward the gaming lore in the finale, it would be really tragic because this is the same man who once fought to protect his family and is now simply a weapon of mass destruction. The episode Blisters and Bedrock didn't just explore the tragedy of Vander losing his humanity, it deepened it by revealing his earlier failed attempts to make peace with Silco. Even as a human, Vander never wanted to be a killer, which makes his fate as Warwick all the more heartbreaking. On top of that, Ambessa approached Singed with a proposal to add Warwick to her Noxian arsenal, and in exchange for making sure that the beast remained under her control, she promised to give Singed whatever he needed. Now, Singed does not fully explain how he got his hands on Vander's seemingly dead body, but he did reveal that during his experiments, he was able to tap into Vander's incredible tolerance for pain. No matter what Singed put him through, something in Vander refused to let go, so he powered through everything that led him to become Warwick. However, Vander's mind was beyond saving, and now the only way to control Warwick or Vander was through blood. However, there was also another way to control the beast, which was by exploiting the bond that he had with Jinx and Vi. Now, when Caitlyn walked in to uncover the deal between Ambessa and Singed, she confronted the scientist whose real name was revealed to be Doc Revick. Determined to get to the bottom of things, she stormed into his lab, demanding to know how they planned to track down Warwick while keeping her in the dark. More importantly, she had now learned Singed's troubles past, where he was once an esteemed scientist of the city, before his experiments led to his expulsion from Piltover Academy. Seeing Singed as equally monstrous as Warwick, Caitlyn was ready to take him down. But before she did, she demanded to know what drove him to commit such horrifying acts in the name of evolution. In response, Singed took Caitlyn and Ambessa inside to open a hidden section of his lab, revealing the preserved body of his daughter, submerged in a strange fluid. As it turns out, Singed has been experimenting with plants and animals to create a steady supply of this embalming liquid, likely in a desperate attempt to find a way to bring her back to life. So by experimenting with Vander and refining his being, Singed was constantly trying to figure out how he could cheat death. Act 2 focused heavily on Vi and Jinx's efforts to restore whatever remained of Vander's humanity. Their struggle becomes the emotional core of their storyline, and when outside forces ultimately thwart their efforts, it makes Warwick's ferocious attacks feel as tragic as they are terrifying. The story turns Vander's transformation into a haunting reminder of what's been lost, not just for him, but for everyone who loved him. Who is Warwick in the League of Legends? In his past life within the League of Legends, Warwick was a Zaunite gangster named Vander who chose to leave his criminal days behind in search of a better and more honest life. So with the hopes of being a better man, he tried to build a new path for himself and his community. But his redemption was cut short when he was kidnapped by the mad scientist Singed, who subjected him to horrifying experiments, pumping him full of chemicals infused with spliced monster DNA, in an attempt to draw out the beast he believed lurked within. The process killed Vander at first, but Singe's twisted science brought him back to life as Warwick, a monster lichen cursed with an uncontrollable thirst for blood. As Warwick, he turned into a large, werewolf-like creature that was formed by combining both human and canine traits in his appearance. His body was covered in bluish-gray fur, with lighter patches on his lower face and chest. His canine muzzle was filled with sharp, massive fangs, and his eyes were typically a yellow-green, even though they could turn bright red when he was enraged. His long, pointed ears had pink skin on the inside, which added a distinct touch to his fierce look. With a muscular upper body and slimmer legs, Warwick's frame was both imposing and agile, and his fluffy tail only reinforced his animalistic nature. He could move on 2 legs, but was also capable of dropping on all 4s, giving him greater speed and mobility. His body was covered with numerous scars, and is now considered as evidence of the violent experiments and battles he had endured over the years. In the gaming lore, Singed has heavily augmented Warwick's body with uneven chemtech machinery, made of brass-colored metal and connected by tubes filled with glowing green liquid. When he's under stress, the liquid in these tubes can shift to a yellow hue that was something even Arcane's Warwick shared. But one of the most striking features of his mechanical enhancements is a clawed gauntlet on his right forearm, which looks both brutal and functional. On his back, a large cylindrical chamber sticks out, topped with a single spike, resembling a needle of a syringe. He also wears a pair of old brown patchwork pants that are tattered and worn, further highlighting the rough and battle-scarred existence he has endured. Now, as a human, Warwick was known for his selflessness and dedication to improving himself and others. He was deeply caring, always putting the well-being of those around him first. I mean, in the gaming lore, Singed even described him as a good man. Many in Zaun looked up to him as a protector, and he was respected by his community. But after Singed's brutal experiments, all that remained of the man he once was a bloodthirsty, monstrous creature driven by pure rage. Now, Warwick was in constant agony, desperate to remember his past life. But his chemical mutations made it nearly impossible for him to connect with those memories. Despite this, he still held a deep sense of pride in his Zaunite roots, and harbored a deep resentment toward the Kim Barons and the Zaunites who had abandoned the Undercity for Piltover. He also saw Yordles as alpha predators, and often growing fixated on them like a dog distracted by a squirrel. Even though most of his memories were lost, Warwick occasionally experienced brief flashes of his former self. The glimpses of his humanity prevented him from harming innocent people, and guided his actions, making him focus only on criminals, especially those with blood on their hands, whom he hunted down with relentless fury.
Don't touch my daughter.
Why does Vander's Warwick design in Arcane look so different from his gaming counterpart? Is he really dead? In the final episode of Arcane Act 2 Season 2, Vi and Jinx bring Vander to Victor's commune, hoping that he can help restore Vander's fractured mind. On Victor's first attempt, he reveals a grim truth that Vander's psyche is deeply entangled with that of the beast. As Victor attempts to access Warwick's mind, he discovers that Vander's soul is still dormant within the werewolf's body, and in order to reach out to him, Victor must push beyond the limits of his hex powers, as Skye points out. Now, Victor was willing to go to extreme lengths to help Vander out, but he needed permission from Vander's daughters to restrain him at night to prevent any unforeseen accidents. After receiving approval from Vi and Jinx, Victor begins his work, and though Vander's recovery is slow, it's clear that progress is being made. Even though he feels himself burning out to help Vander, Victor doesn't give up. Over the course of several days, he works tirelessly, gradually making progress, and slowly but surely he seems to succeed in uncovering Vander's buried memories and personality, gently peeling back the layers of the beast that consumed him. Meanwhile, the Noxian army shows up at the doorstep of Victor's village. Now, Rictus is eager to storm in and take Warwick by force, but Singed insists on speaking with Victor first, and seeing if there's a way to resolve the situation without violence. When Singed meets Victor, he reveals that Victor's abilities are finite, so every time he uses his hex powers, they seem to be fading, and one way to replenish them is by injecting himself with Warwick's blood. However, Victor outright refuses to participate in such barbaric methods, and tells Singed to leave so that he can concentrate on saving Vander instead. While Singed reluctantly agrees to Victor's request, later on, the scientist sneaks in and attempts to inject Warwick with one of his latest concoctions that would prevent Victor from saving Vander's mind. However, Caitlin intervenes just in time to stop him. But Rictus was there all along, and moved to kill Caitlin for betraying Ambessa. Luckily, before he could do much, Jinx fires at him from a distance, using a gun that Isha managed to retrieve for her, giving Caitlin the opening she needed to escape. Unfortunately, the potential peace of Victor's safe haven does not stay for too long, as at the end of Act 2, Jace arrives at the Herald's village and finds Victor floating in his grand, almost otherworldly space. The sight of Victor's transformation and the sheer power of the Hex Core shocks him. So Jace powers up his corrupted hammer and aims it toward a meditating Victor, blasting him in the chest. As Victor takes his last breath, his death sends shockwaves through the community, and all the Zaunites who had been healed by Victor collapse, and their bodies begin convulsing in pain before going completely lifeless. Now, since Victor has also been working on Warwick in order to bring back Vander, the chaos of his death affects the beast too. After Victor's death, Warwick transformed into a raging monster that spews lava from every crevice of his body. For a brief moment, Vander's mind takes control again, but it doesn't last long before Warwick fully takes over, and in his monstrous rage, he begins to kill everything in his path. Rictus is among those caught in the devastation, and his brutal death pretty much triggers Ambessa to go crazy on Warwick. Meanwhile, things take a darker turn when Isha, in a desperate attempt to save Jinx, loads all the Hex gemstones she has into Jinx's gun and runs into the chaos to fire them at Vander. The resulting explosion of this is catastrophic, likely killing both Vander and Isha. Now, Warwick's design in Arcane gave him more human-like facial features than his video game counterpart, who had a fully wolf-like head. This change seemed intentional, reflecting the last remnants of Vander's humanity before he was completely overtaken by the beast within. In the final moments of Act 2, we saw Isha sacrifice herself in a desperate attempt to stop a lava-spewing Vander, who was now fully rampaging as Warwick. Unfortunately, her sacrifice was likely in vain, as Warwick's regenerative abilities hinted at by Singed will inevitably allow him to survive and evolve, eventually resembling the Warwick from League of Legends. How powerful is Warwick? Just like the Hex Core is the peak of Victor and Jace's life's work, Warwick is the living embodiment of Singed's most prized creation, the most refined beast he has ever made. Given he's a werewolf-like mutant, he has physical abilities far above those of a normal human. Every time the Chemtech enhancement on the back of his body resets or refuels at the smell of blood, it gives him a crazy power-up that enhances his strength. Warwick's skin is also incredibly tough, making him nearly impervious to damage from conventional attacks. Plus, his endurance is beyond human limits, allowing him to keep fighting at full strength even when he's badly injured. He's also astonishingly fast and is able to move so quickly that he can catch up to very long distances in mere seconds. His senses are also far more sharper than those of a normal human, especially his sense of smell, which was evident by how he could detect blood and track down Singed from many miles away. Additionally, Warwick has a remarkable ability to heal from wounds that would be fatal to a human, and he also heals at a much faster rate that allows him to recover and continue his relentless pursuit with terrifying efficiency. Overall, Warwick's character design in Arcane is truly glorious, even if he does not look identical to his original gaming lore. Now that we're at the end of this video, have you guys seen Arcane's finale yet? Let us know about your thoughts on it in the comment box below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.